Gather round, my little horrorlings. Mama has got some scary stories for you. I wanted to share a story that happened in the house I currently rent. I have to say, I have lived here for a while and for the most part nothing has really happened. It was a quiet neighbourhood until recently, and all the neighbours have been nice. To give some context to this whole story, I lived here about a year when an elderly neighbour who I used to hang out with periodically told me about the house I live in. She had lived in the neighbourhood since the 60s and had seen it grow and change. She asked me if I liked the house and if anything weird had happened. I thought it was a strange question, but I told her no, it had been uneventful. She looked surprised, but went into the story of the house. It used to be a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house with an attached garage when it was built. In the late 90s, the garage was converted to an extra room. She asked me if I slept in the converted room. I told her no, but asked why. That's when she told me that in the early 90s a family had lived in the house. They had 2 boys and a girl. One day the girl was playing in the garage with her dad's tools and she had an accident. Apparently she fell on one of the tools and it stabbed her in the chest. She died before the ambulance could get there. The family moved out soon after. I was unsettled for sure, but I used that room for storage, so I didn't think much of it. Nothing ever happened, so I completely forgot about the story. That was until 2 years ago. It was a Saturday morning and my brother had come over to watch some college football. When you walk into the house, you see the kitchen in front of you, 2 rooms to your right, and the door to the garage turned room on the left. The room has a window that goes along the wall so you can see the sunlight from the bottom of the door. The living room has the same type of window, both facing the driveway, and my couch goes along the window against the wall with the door on it. Anyway, I was sitting on the couch and my brother was sitting on the other end of the couch. We were watching the game and my neighbour's kids were playing outside, so you can hear kids laughing and running on the driveway and just kids being kids. We continued watching the game and didn't notice the noise from the outside had stopped. All of a sudden, we heard a loud laugh, a bang against the window behind the couch, and the sound of footsteps running away. I quickly jumped and turned to look out the window. There were no kids in sight. I turned to my brother and asked if he had heard that too. He said that he did and asked if they were the neighbours' kids. I told him there weren't any kids outside, so he looked confused and said there should be, because he saw a shadow pass under the door to the spare room. So they had to have run past the window. That would make sense, but I turned round quick enough that I would have seen them run home if they had been there. I was a bit confused about the source of the noise, as my brother was. We tried to put it past us and we kept watching the game. Like an hour later, my brother jumped and said he could see a shadow walk underneath the door. I checked if anyone was outside and there was no one there. All of a sudden, we hear a child's laugh and something bangs hard against the door a few times. The whole time we can see the shadow of someone standing on the other side of the door. We just said nope and left the house that instant. We ended up going somewhere to watch the rest of the game. When we got back later in the day, we both opened the door and checked it. The window was closed and locked. Nothing was moved, and the house was quiet. I was shook for a couple of days after that. I haven't seen or heard anything from the room after that one incident. I don't know if it will happen again, but I hope that it doesn't. This happened about 13 years ago. I'm currently 28. My childhood dog died when I was early in high school. This happened not too long after. Upon researching what it might have been, it was most likely a false awakening, but it still gives me chills to this day. I shared a room with my older brother, who was a pretty heavy sleeper once he got there. He'd usually be up playing video games all night, and I got used to being able to fall asleep through the sounds of him yelling at other players and all that good stuff. One night I woke up feeling the foot of my bed sink in, like somebody had sat down there. When I looked, I saw a small child sitting with his back towards me. The child seemed to be wearing a black shirt with white horizontal stripes. I immediately thought to myself, all right, screw that, and went back to sleep. I woke up what felt like a few hours later, and he was now standing at the foot of my bed facing me, holding my dead dog's head in his hands. The child was surrounded by an extremely dark aura, so much so that I couldn't gather any details on skin complexion or anything. I immediately lost it and freaked out, falling out of my bed. This part creeped me out because the fall was very detailed. I knocked over an acoustic guitar I had on a stand near my bed when I fell out, and my brother shuffled in his sleep due to the noise. When I tried to wake him up, he mumbled, half asleep, that we needed to get more Pepsi, and then went back to sleep. I scrambled back into my bed. All the while this kid just watched me, holding my dog's head throughout. I fell back asleep and then had my real awakening that morning. The guitar was in its stand and everything was normal. I ended up not telling anybody about this dream. The really messed up part, and why this bad dream still gives me chills, has to do with the fact that my dog was buried in my backyard, in a little side yard that always had some really weird energy to it. Months later, my friends and I were hanging out, and we'd usually smoke in the backyard, close to the side yard area. We'd made our way inside and were munching and watching movies when my good friend said he needed to run to the backyard and get his phone. He went out to grab it with his usual demeanour, but I heard his footsteps running back at a full sprint to the back door and into the house. His skin was pale and he was visibly shaken. I asked him what was wrong. His response, "Dude, you're going to think I'm crazy, but I just saw a little kid standing right where your dog is buried." Thank you for listening, my little horrorlings. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell to find out first about new content. Give this video a like and drop me a comment below to let me know what you think of the creatures in tonight's stories. Don't forget to check beneath your bed for monsters and have sweet and pleasant dreams.